African Americans ain't African.
To ponder this, what is love? A podcast series discussing and defining the definitions of love with your host, Ray Vision, an advocate of love. Because we are a love lifestyle brand movement. Sit back and enjoy the communal conversation. Hey, everybody. This is your host, Ray Vision. I want to welcome you to a beautiful Saturday morning. And like I always say, if the sun is not shining where you are, it is. Just look beyond the clouds. Find it within yourself. Find it outside of yourself. Just find the sun somewhere and make sure that it's shining for you. I'm excited about today. We're going to have three guests on that are going to be talking about cultural love. You know, we all have a culture. We all have a history. We all have some type of culture that we're attached to. We come here into a family. We come into a community. We come into self. And so we're kind of going beyond the self of love, and we're going to be talking about communal love. On July 28th, there's going to be a workshop webinar in Harlem that I'm partnered with Gabriel Rich and the Rich Report in bringing this, and two of his cohorts will be along with him on that day, Phoenix Moon and Tasha Xi. I'm hoping I'm going to get the pronunciation of the XI in a few minutes when we bring them on. We'll be coming and gathering on July 28th. It's a Saturday. The doors open in Harlem at 10 a.m. and then online for the webinar at 11. And so the discussion or the workshop is going to be centered around why the 2020 census is important for Negroes. And so we have these three hosts that will be hosting that. We have them on there. It's a whole panel discussion and everything. So they're on this show, and we're going to get a little bit of information centered around who they are, the love of their culture, and then getting a little bit of information on what's going to be happening on July 28th and why they do what they do. And so, but before we get that, that's a little bit of the community news. Let me get back into a little bit more of the community news. I want everybody to know, with everything that we do under Ponder This, we are also raising funds for two nonprofit organizations, one being the Black Family Land Trust and the other one being Grocers on Wheels. Black Family Land Trust is centered in North Carolina. They work up and down the East Coast and have been moving out west. It is directed by, wow, now the name's going to escape me. Why? Alex, oh, my God. Just go to doubleeproductions.com. ponderthis1.com. You'll find out more information. But what they do is they help black families keep their land for legacy purposes, also for entrepreneurial purposes. So if you want to find out more information about Black Family Land Trust, definitely go to BFLT.org. And if you have any land that's in your family or you're concerned about the land that's in your family, you want to keep that land, definitely check them out, and they can help you do that. They're national, believe it or not, so wherever you are, they will help you. Then we also are working with Demetrius Hunter, and he is a part of Grocers on Wheels. His father was in one of the wars and got out in 1928, and he started delivering food that was created by black farmers to areas where people needed food, natural food or good, wholesome food. And so he's taken over that business from his father and is continuing to do the work, and now they work with people that are in land deserts. They are also centered out of North Carolina as well. And so definitely check him out, grocersonwheels.org. If you want organic foods, you can also order food from them, and you'll also be will be helping out the black farmers that are in North Carolina by doing so. So I just want to put that out there. We are going to be raising funds with everything that we do under EE Productions and Ponder This, raising funds to help them stay. We are a love lifestyle brand that is also a social impact company. That we are a community that builds businesses. So, or a community that builds communities. I don't know why I'm flustered this morning. This is crazy. The other thing that I want to mention, under EE Productions, I will be, as Corey Rashawn and not as Ray Vision, producing live shows again in the area in which I live, which is Wappingers Falls, New York. Just got approved to do that, so if there's artists out there that would like to be live streamed from a beautiful venue, back in the day, I used to produce shows out of restaurants, which was like a Blue Note, so it's dinner theater. We'll be doing acoustical sets up here in Wappingers Falls, looking for professionals that have a website, a following, and would like to be live streamed from this event. It's under the Ponder This brand. It's called the Love Experience. And so if you know anyone that has, or any artists out there that are looking to work and be live streamed, please get in contact with me. You can go to weproductions.com and connect with me there. So it's the Love Experience. But you can also, too, I guess, go to ponderthisone.com and hit me up there, since it is under the Love Lifestyle brand. So we're producing a beautiful experience for people to be entertained, because you know what, entertainment and art is healing. To be happy is healing, and so we kind of want to bring back that true essence of performance with artists that really can sing, that have a message to their music, and not a madness to it. So we're also looking for poets as well to open up our shows and bring that type of vibration to the stage. So I am excited about that as well, because that's where my passion really lies, is in the arts and producing shows and the whole nine, and communing around food, because I'm a foodie. If anybody doesn't know that, they do now. So that's a little bit about the community that's going on under Ponder This. I don't know if I forgot anything, but if I did, like I said, you can always go to ponderthisone.com and get in touch with us via our social media. Check out all of our other podcasts. There's a podcast on a Monday, there's a podcast on Wednesdays, and then there's these inspirational podcasts that I've been doing lately. When Source hits me, I will post, and so you can check that out. That's under Ray Vision and Ponder This, the Messenger. So check that out as well. I think that is everything. So let's prepare ourselves to be enlightened in a few minutes with our guests. We have, like I said, Phoenix Moon, Gabriel Rich, and Tasha Xi. We're going to come back after this nice little serenade and speak with them and be introduced to who they are. So hold on tight. Let me serenade you with I Am Balanced.
I am balanced in my ways. My heart, my thought, and my spirit define me. I am feminine, and I am masculine. I am more than flesh, and I am more than bones. I am the elements of this universe. My genitalia does not define me, but allows me to procreate the reflections of God that I can guide in this realm. My thoughts do not define me. It is my guide and my protector. It calculates my choices. My spirit is my foundation. It is the heart of who I am. It carries the wisdoms of centuries and a library of laws. I am a balanced vessel of a higher realm that awaits and reacts daily to a calling. I am the feminine, and I am the masculine divine, the creation of a conscious creator. I am the intuition of the universe's logic. I nurture my experience with reason. I am the healing companion that takes action. I am the gentle embodiment of man that stands firm in my convictions. I am expressive with my emotions so that I can survive the Earth's vibrational terrain. I am wise in my ways and loyal with my tongue. I am patient in situations and adventurous in my expansion. I am emotional in my caring and rational with my reactions. I am flexible in my care and have strength to build when needed. I am balanced in my ways. I am the reflection of the I am. So when called on, I am ready to be. I come equipped with the energy, for I am the feminine divine, coiled around the masculine divine, ready to take on the charge of this vibration called love.
All right. I'm laughing at myself because I forgot how to work my phone. Folks, that was Unbalanced. I wrote that a few years ago, and so there it is. Now let's get ready to be serenaded with informative information and insightful information from our guests. I want to welcome the women, Tasha Phoenix, and the man, Gabriel. How are you all doing this morning?
Hi. How's it going, Corey?
It's going well. Is Tasha and Phoenix there?
Hi, this is Phoenix. Hi, Corey. How are you?
How you doing?
I'm
Tasha.
doing well, thank you.
Let me see. I don't think Tasha's back yet.
She'll be on shortly.
Okay. Text me what her number might be too, Gabe, if you can.
Okay.
All right. So, we're on today. This is a whole new for me because I don't really talk about culture. I talk about self. But love is definitely something that is encompasses everything in our lives. So not only ourselves, but our families and our culture and who we are as individuals in this world. So I definitely want to thank you both, as well as Tasha when she gets on, for being a part of this special that we're having today. So I would like for you guys to introduce yourselves to my audience and let them know who you are. And so, Phoenix, if you can introduce yourself, I would appreciate that.
Okay. My name is Phoenix Moon. I am an American Indian. I'm from New York City. I was born and raised there. I've kind of lived in several different states throughout my adult life. Very interested in the plight of affairs of indigenous people here in America, in the Americas, and pretty much melanated people all over the world. Anti-oppression. I'm the total activist, and that's pretty much it. I rep my people. I'm everywhere where the problems are, so I can contribute solutions the best way I know how.
Love that. Gabriel, you're not new, but let people, this audience, know who you are.
Well, I'm not brand new anyway, thank goodness.
Right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gabriel Rich. I am a writer, publicist, although that part is winding down. Radio show host and producer. I have a show called The Rich Report that comes on Thursday nights at 9 p.m. And I am an American Indian, or I should say, rather, an Ame'Rican Indian, and an Tusco Roaring to boot. So I, like Phoenix, am interested in the conditions of our people. We are most of us are Indians, and we are an invisible people walking in plain sight. And the goal is to make us visible again.
Gotcha. Beautiful. So with all that said, just to stay in the theme of the show, and just you can be as long or as brief as you want. We always are here to define love. So how do you both define love? And actually, when I'm asking questions, just so that we are can kind of keep some type of order, I will always ask the woman first. So, Phoenix, you're up. How do you, just in basic, define what love is?
I define love is this sense of being pleased with regard to affection, based off of qualities that excite people in a different way that gratification. Natural love would certainly be the love that
Okay, hold it 1 second. For some reason you're going in and out.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah, that's better. Perfect. So say that again.
I was just saying the general sense is to be pleased with regards to affection. The first people that you find that you love are usually your parents and siblings and family members. It's the gratification that pretty much fortifies our souls in one way or another.
Gotcha. Beautiful. And Gabe, how do you define love?
Love is a cosmic spiritual energy that is, one can say, beyond definition, because some things are both tangible and intangible. You can't necessarily reach out and grab love, but you know it's there. You know it's ever present. It's soulful. It is something that I guess you can say is symbiotic. It ebbs, it flows, and it's something that is magnetic. And love, as I see it, is a feeling. One could say an emotion. I would say a feeling more so than an emotion for both people, land, the universe, really, because we're all following universal law, whether we believe it or not. And it should be applied more today. There's less love in the world today because the people who run the world today are not loving individuals. They are the exact opposite. But love conquers all, and that's how I see it.
Okay, cool beans. So let's talk about this, the culture in which you are both actually exposing, defending, fighting for. I liked, I think, what Gabriel said or Phoenix said, the invisible, the walking invisible culture. Define what an Indigenous or Ame'Ricans is.
I'll let Phoenix go with that.
The autochthonous person of the lands of the Americas. They have placed these imaginary borders around us and these corporate constructs that tell us this person is from here and this person is from there. They're all imaginary lines in regards to who we are as a people. Everyone, North, South, and Central America, the Aboriginal inhabitants, are the Amerindians, the autochthonous people of the land, and their guests.
And for both of you again, how did you come to the knowledge of your true cultural? Because we're all taught, because we're all probably around the same age, and this has been going on for centuries. We're Black Americans or we're African Americans. Our names have changed many times.
Right.
Me being introduced to my cultural background through Gabriel, and then, striking up memories of my grandfather saying that we were never slaves, and just being too young to even inquire more about that, because you've got, the school's teaching you one thing, and then, your parents are saying something else, but the information is not as rich, in a sense, as what they're teaching your school, or not defined and broken down, and they're not giving you all this. They're just saying, you know what, we weren't slaves. But knowing that, my grandfather, also stated that, he's from a Blackfoot tribe and some other things like that, but really never going in deep. So how did you guys come to knowing who you actually were and are, and how did that become a passion for you?
Well, I'll say
ladies first.
I've always heard it. I've always heard it. One day, I had a summer. Once I was about 14 years old, maybe 15. I had a summer youth job, and I went out and bought some music that I liked, some X-Clan and maybe a Public Enemy. And I got all fired up. I had this tape recorder that my uncle purchased me, and I went to go interview my grandfather, and I said to him, Grandpa, where are we from in Africa? And before he could say anything, my grandmother looked from the other side of the room and said, we're not. So, I was being a little facetious, and I said, well, Grandma, I kind of wasn't talking to you, so I stopped the tape, and I went back to my grandfather, and I ran the tape back again. I said, okay, so, Pops, where are we from in Africa? He said, Alabama. My grandmother said, Virginia. I don't know where you're getting that from. And I said, well, I just wanted to know about slavery. She said, well, we don't know nothing about it, so how can we explain it to you? But just the look on their face, it looked like they were going to tag team me, just off the ropes, WWE style, And so I've always heard it, but, you get told to go to school and be good in school, and then in school they're teaching you something different. So you kind of, have to comply with those regulations and stuff like that. And then certainly you don't want to disappoint anyone, your mother and father or whoever's raising you, by having problems in school all the time, challenging the information that they're giving you.
Right.
And certainly the small snippets that the elders were giving us as a result of them being threatened for even talking about it. See, these are the things that I know now as an adult, but I certainly didn't understand that before, why a lot of these conversations were actually absent from the households. And they were, they had their reasons why they were very closed-lipped about it. So now that most of them have passed on and being unable to ask these questions, and I am an adult, I have adult children now, this is the part where I went through like a second cycle of life, a better cycle, a complete 360 after I turned 40. Things just started to become a lot more clear, and I was interested and didn't run from the clarity, because that meant that there were some things that were changing in me, and this time I just didn't fight it. I let it happen, and this is where I am today. In the last 5 years, I've learned a lot of things that go hand in hand with our culture. I've started to process why certain things seem so beyond the scope of our control, such as the prison systems and just some of the sufferings that, so-called Black Americans deal with. And I understand where it came from, and a lot of it is based on us not knowing who we are. This is where we are now, and I've kind of, it took a lot of losses in order for me to, even be serious or take serious about learning how to protect myself, not so much physically, but so much from oppression.
Right.
And, that came with some things that you have to throw away, some things that you keep, and then some things that you have to go looking for.
Right. Wow.
In places that are not really the most familiar places. I had to go into the unfamiliar in order to get what I was looking for, because everything that I was taught hasn't done me any good, and it didn't fit into the narrative that I knew to be a fact about myself and my family and who I come from. And it was at that point I decided, to look more into things. I got into genealogy and made all these discoveries, and then, other people thought it was cool and asked me to help them out, and then I found out the same thing about their families and the same thing about the other person that they referred families, and now it's 14 years later, and I'm really kind of wondering, where are a lot of things that we were told? Where are the slaveries? Where's the slavery? And where are these people that came from all over the place to work for free? It's so much that I haven't seen. I'm not saying that it didn't exist, but it certainly isn't on the scale of what McGraw-Hill puts inside of textbooks.
Right. And we know what they're doing. Gabriel, how did you come to know who you were and who you are culturally?
Well, I think we probably should let Tasha get on. She's on right now, and let another chief explain before I go into my spiel.
Okay, yes, I see her. There she is.
Yes.
Tasha.
Hello. Hi.
How are you?
How
Hey.
Good.
Good.
I'm sorry. Just coming online.
No need to be sorry. Everything happens in its right divine moment. So what I'm going to allow you to do is to introduce yourself, and then I'm going to ask you the question to give us a brief definition of what you feel love is, and then I want to know how you also came to know who you were culturally. So if you can handle that, I would appreciate it.
Okay. You said a brief explanation of what love is?
What love is, yeah, define love for me.
Okay. All right. Well,
right.
yes, this is Tasha Xi. I'm from Virginia. Like both sides of my family are from Virginia. You said definition of love. I think love is it's just that positive energy people put out, that positive intention that people put out in the world. It can be romantic, it can be unconditional, it can be conditional for some people, but it's really that positive energy. That's what I believe that is. And how I came into this information, well, as a little girl, I was always curious. I was a big fan of Alex Haley before I found out, a lot of his stuff was fraudulent. Was looking up and inspiring to him, to be a writer, to get into history. I came to my great grandmother and I, was asking her a lot of questions, and she's like, from the Alex Haley, you're thinking, we're from Africa and all this stuff. So I said, hey, let me go to the darkest skinned person in my family and ask her about Africa. So I asked my grandmother, I said, where are we, what do you know about us being from Africa? Where in Africa are we from? And she laughed at me and she said, we're not from Africa. She said, I'm Mattapanai. She said, your grandfather was Mattapanai and Pamunkey. But it wasn't, it was, she was happy that I came to her and asked questions. And then I was asking more about our family, where we come from, and then she started telling me the stories of us, our people, the Mattapanai, migrating up to Virginia from Mexico. And as a kid, I'm like, what? Mexico? We're Mexicans? Like,
right.
I couldn't fathom the difference between, being an indigenous person from Mexico and the Mestizo people who are living there now.
Right.
So, and with that information, she started giving me a little bit of information, about who we were. And my grandmother also jumped in, too, and saying, yes, she's Mattapanai. And, they were happy, saying they were Indian. But, yeah, so from those little information, they wanted me to, I guess, be the firekeeper of that information. And my great-grandmother, before the last conversation I had with her before she passed, she wanted me to find the history, verify what she was saying, and write the history of our family. That's what she wanted me to do. And that was in 2006. So I've been on that journey since then, trying to get information and doing my own genealogy, helping other people do their genealogy and find out, similar information. And so far, just like the Phoenix is saying, I haven't found anyone with slave ancestry or with African ancestry yet. Not saying that there's not a few people like that, but from what I see, most people come from lines of free people of color. And just like Phoenix was saying, we're getting this narrative from schools and from people who are not us, telling us who we are. And we need to go to our elders. We need to go and look for ourselves. Like even if you don't believe your elders, like I had to verify what my great grandmother said and my grandmother said. You're going to have to do that for yourself. You can't just go on with people in school. They're just putting a general narrative to benefit themselves out there. They're not looking into individual families and the true history that was here before. Now, if you go and verify it for yourself, you'll see, even if you do have slave ancestry, some of those people, well, probably the majority of them people were indigenous people that were enslaved here. And even if some people are documented from coming from Africa, all those people are not Africans. And the Africans that I spoke to, the elder Africans, say that they sold to foreigners. They didn't sell their own people. That's why they're not over here calling for reparations and asking for the people back, because they sold to foreigners.
Oh, interesting.
You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there it is for me. Okay. Okay, now you got me wanting to go into that. Gabriel, go ahead. How did you come into knowing? Because now I got some questions.
It's kind of funny because, I obviously, growing up, born in 1966, during the height of the beginning of the Black Power movement, we grew up being black and proud. And then, of course, the whole African-American thing, which I never bought into. But, even the whole Afrocentric thing, part of all of that stuff, used to wear the X hats and all this other stuff. But none of that stuff ever really set right in my soul. So I started actually flashing back. A few years ago, I started, because I was always on a quest for the truth. So, the deal is when you search for the truth, when you find it, you can't then blink and turn away and act like you didn't see it. It's there. It's present. So I started flashing back, and then I remember this one particular instance where I was like 10 or 11 years old and Roots came on. And I remember after watching, everybody was watching Roots, if you remember. All the white kids were apologetic. I'm sorry for what happened in slavery. All the black kids were mad. All the Negros kids, So I said to my big mama, gosh, big mama, we're from Africa. And I just remember the look she gave me, peered over, over her glasses. And she wasn't a backhand type of person, but she was getting ready to give me the backhand. And she said, we ain't from no Africa. We from right here, And then she said to my big dad, what's wrong with this boy? They got to tell this boy something. My big dad, cut that mess out, boy. Ain't somebody else. Now, he was born in 1904. She was born in 1908. Okay? Really, she was my great aunt. And from there, just remembering going to Sampson County, North Carolina, because that's where my father's side was from. I'm from Wayne County, North Carolina. All of the statues and stuff that you could see of the Indians look like us. Now, they're not there anymore. They've taken those statues away. Going to Camp Waccamaw, going to, Camp Tuscarora, these places back in the day, those statues looked like us. They were looking like us then, and we didn't even realize it. So I just started putting two and two together and started doing the homework and doing the research. And, what I found was, there was a slave trade, but not as they describe it. And certainly no 12 million Africans made it here. They would proliferate through our culture. We'd be eating more, fufu and jollof rice if that was the case, and we don't. We don't speak any of their language. It didn't, their language didn't blend into ours. Most of the Geechee language that people talk about is really more of the Ogeechee tribe. It has nothing to do really with Africans. And I'm not saying that Africans weren't in South Carolina. Certainly they were. Charleston Port brought some in, but not nearly to the extent that what we've been told. And what I found out was, because they used to always say that the Indians are an invisible people, but when you think of Indians back then, you think of Plains Indians. You think of you think of the cat in the Keep America Beautiful commercial, where he's canoeing and and then he comes out in one tear, and then you come to find out that he's Italian.
Right.
Iron Eyes Cody, he's Italian. He was one of the main people who pushed for the Native American movement, because native just means you're born here. Basically, he was a $5 Indian, and as they are, and also just going to certain reservations here, the Lumbee Reservation here, a few other reservations, the Waccamaw Reservation, and when you go there, you dig deep, and they like you to visit, but they don't like you to dig deep. And I started digging deep to the point where they kicked me out. So it just came to the logical conclusion that we are those Indians that they speak of. My family on neither side certainly were not slaves. We are from the Carolinas mainly. So was told, however, my paternal grandmother's side, that we came up, some of us came up through Barbados. Costa Rica, and that's probably the case. I'm still looking into that, but for the most part, my mother's father's side, my grandmother, paternal grandmother, she was a Rowan. She was a Rowan, Cherokee, if you will, part of the Cherokee Nation. And my grandfather was a Blackfoot, paternal grandfather, and on my mother's side, they're Tuscaroran Indians, partly from the Nuciot, which is along the Neuse River in North Carolina. And, it is what it is. And I've, since then, the pieces to the puzzle that Phoenix, Tasha, and myself have all been checking out, they just fall into place.
Gotcha. Wow. So that means we're cousins through Blackfoot then, huh?
Yeah, well, Blackfoot is subjective, too. It relates more to skin complexion, skin tone, but they were individual tribes. They were basically called Blackfoot for a number of reasons. Here, particularly where I live at on Tobacco Road, you had a lot of Indians that would put tar on the soles of their feet.
Oh wow!
So so they when they walk without shoes on or anything, you don't get briars, you don't get anything stuck in your foot. That's where the term, the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, that's where they get the term Tar Heels from, because they're in the heart of Blackfoot territory. They actually built their university on Blackfoot land. So as a lot of colleges and universities did. But it's a subjective term.
Got it. So let me, in hearing all that I heard, we have been inundated with an education that is not allowing us to define ourselves, or not even allowing us to even know who we are. What is the purpose behind that? What is the purpose behind this huge miseducation about Amerindians or the Indigenous Americans that are here, or from what I understand, this is not even America. It was renamed. But so, what is the purpose behind all of this?
To say all the Indians are dead. To say we're not here, so they can claim the land legally. See, they're illegally occupying the land now, off the basis that it's abandoned. Just like if you abandon your home and someone moves in, they can, squat on the land, basically. That's what they're doing.
Got it.
So if we don't identify indigenous people from the UNDRIP have the rights to self-identify. And that's the importance of the census, for us to self-identify and say we're still here, we never left.
Okay.
And you have to understand that they signed multiple hundreds of treaties. I've been told up to 650. I know 500. And so therefore they would have to honor those treaties if we go back to being Indians. As Tasha said, they're occupied. The Corporation of the United States of America occupies America.
Got it. And do you find with let me ask each one of you. I mean, you answer as you do, but how long have you been doing this type of research?
Well, I would say I've been doing it probably for the better part of the last 5 years. In the last 2 years, it became really, really intensified based on the availability of information, and also me deprogramming myself from the usual pattern of research. The usual pattern of research is usually based off of things that we've already learned in school, but once I kind of threw all of those things away, I knew how to look for specific primary sources that would, initially I kind of just worked on myself. I couldn't work on everybody else's history, and that's pretty much how it should be in order to get more clarity. And then this way you're able to assist other people in identifying their individual histories as well, based off of the similarities, some of the laws at the time. So I would say in the last couple of years, it's really intensified in the way I research and how much I do.
Gotcha. Tasha?
Yeah, for me too, it's probably been probably 2015 is when I started to focus more on the indigenous aspect instead of just my own family. Finding, more information in my research, pointing to, the fact that more people, not just my family and not just some of the families that I know of, that more people have the same history, and that it's really been, it's been right there in our face. It's kind of like hidden in plain sight. And, just trying to get that information out, because it's very important that people know who they are, because it brings the community a sense of self-esteem and self-respect and, a place of being. Like, people thinking that they're from nobody, from this invisible culture that came out of the spinning era like 100-something years ago, when we have a rich culture that's been here for thousands of years. And, that's very important to self-development of our people and redefining our culture.
Got it. Gabe, how long have you been in this whole research and discovery?
Well, like Phoenix and Tasha, over the last couple of years, I really focused and concentrated on the indigenous aspect and getting away from my family history and trying to just piece it all together. And in doing so, it's given me such insight where before you could always, I can say that I've always been conscious but not necessarily awake. But when you are awake, when you unplug, and it takes, and in saying even when you unplug, because we've all been indoctrinated with education and we live at some point in our lives. But when you awake and you open your eyes, you can see every move that they've made and every move that they will make. You can see around corners. You have sight beyond sight, if you will. And what you find is if you can pass this information on, especially to the youth, because they need it more than ever, because they're just walking around lost. So, so the last couple of years, really the pieces to the puzzle really started to come together. And, I mean, this is like a million-word puzzle, because this is the game they play. It's like a puzzle that has a million pieces, right? So you have to take by section and put it together one at a time until you put those million pieces together. Now, in saying that, I'm not close to having those million pieces together, but I got one side of that puzzle together where I can see a clear picture of something, and I now know my way to putting those other pieces together. It's going to take some time, but I know that I can get it done.
Got it. Now, let me ask you this, because it's funny that I had a conversation with a cousin of mine yesterday, and, I was asking him, knowing that this show was going to happen, and just my own curiosity. He's a journalist, and so he used to, go around and taping everybody in the family, and I just wanted to know if he ever got, the confirmation from my grandfather, the tribes that he said his It's funny because he said his mother was Indian, so I'm still trying to figure that out. But the tribes that he came from, as well as, the tribes that my grandmother stated that they were a part of. And my mother was a genealogist in my family, and that's how we found out we were part Shinnecock as well. And there's some history behind that. I think, too, Gabe, I don't know if they kicked us off because we were digging too deep, but I know that, there's some bad blood or bad vibes there with the Shinnecocks. But this whole DNA testing, how does that hurt or help, maybe? But I think I want to go with my first because, he's like, he's saying that, oh, well, they found the African tribe or the area of Africa that we come from and, this, that, and the other. but they can't find any, Indian or Native American tribe blood. And I'm like, I've never even seen that listed, even when they do the commercial advertisements. I'm part, Cherokee. So how does the DNA from all of you, do you feel help or hurt, or is it a part of the strategy, as I call it, from the ruling elite, to again divide and conquer?
Well,
Anyone?
I would absolutely say that it's not something that I would subscribe to. Past example, perfect example, Henrietta Lacks, the Tuskegee Airmen,
Right.
And plenty of other people. So now that I've learned how to apply myself, I'm not going to act like I don't get blood drawn from the doctor when I go. But I find out how many, tubes they're going to take, where exactly it's going. I'm kind of give them a contract before they can even handle me. What information are you using my weight for? And make sure that they have my ethnicity down correctly. Like I take my teeth back when I get my wisdom tooth pulled. I don't leave them much room. They can't produce a law that tells me that they have to keep my tooth once they extract it, things like that. I don't really mess with those controlled sciences. And the reason being because those are areas that you have to specialize in under the oppressor's umbrella of knowledge in that area, which is to directly cut me off from the land. They also are not testing various amounts of people. It seems to me that everybody in America, if you have the last name Jackson, William Jones, all of these familiar names that are known to be American Indian names,
right,
they will send you to West Africa. I have no idea how the samples are being handled, who owns the property rights to it after I sign over whatever waiver. It says for entertainment purposes. And the one thing that I know about DNA, absolutely guaranteed, is that it was meant for crimes, not for ancestry. So if it can give you a general area of where it is that they say you probably could have been X amount of years ago, you probably could be from this area, that certainly doesn't guarantee that your grandmother's name was Thomas Williams or your grandfather's name was Thomas Williams. You see, It's never going to give you a name. So essentially, you're never going to find out your ancestry. Your ancestry is based off of your direct descendants, your direct ascendants, and your direct descendants. So if it doesn't give you a name, if you can't prove that you are Shaka Zulu's grandson or third cousin twice removed, then it doesn't give you what exactly you're looking for. It's not going to stand up in a court of law.
I like that.
So I don't subscribe to it.
Gotcha. Then that makes total sense. Does anybody else have a comment on the DNA testing and how it helps or hurts?
DNA testing. Oh, go ahead, Tasha. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, okay. Yeah, I was going to say that the DNA test, for me, it's 50-50 on certain aspects because a lot of times for regional reasons, it's not correct at all. And they just did some DNA tests. A tribe in Canada did DNA tests with a dog and a human, and both of the dog and the human came back as indigenous to Canada. So, that.
Give me a minute.
This stuff is crazy. You can't trust it. Now, if you're on Maury Povich or something for paternity, yes, because you're connecting, a direct ancestry from one generation. When you go past one generation, that's when it gets very blurry, and you can't really tell where that person's from. Also, they don't put in perspective the people from here who went to Africa, whether it was Liberia. There's people that went to Ghana. There's people that went to Sierra Leone and other Angola, different places. Either it was recently people went there or 100 or something years ago. So and then they don't tell us, like the testing is anonymous, so they don't tell us who are they using over here. Like they use people from Mexico in certain areas of South America for the Native American quote-unquote test. And then in Africa, it's totally blank. They refuse to give us who they are testing. So you can't trust regional. Right? And then also, like Phoenix said, is entertainment purposes. They tell you in the fine print that it's entertainment purposes because they can't be certain. And the testing, I had a friend who had a master's in genetics. She said, "Do not." I asked her before to do the, should I do the DNA test and things like that? And she said, "Don't do the DNA test. They're not nearly as advanced to tell you which region that you're from. Either way, they don't have enough samples. The technology is not up to standard, and especially the technology that they're giving the common person. It's not the same that they're using on DNA tests for archaeologists. So you're basically throwing away your money unless you're using it to connect with cousins. And like I said, you on Maury Povich or you going to court or whatever doing some, child support DNA tests. Unless you, that's the only good thing I see from it. Like certain people in my family, cousins, have used it on GEDmatch to find other family members. And I have cousins who have connected through DNA to tribal members in Virginia.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So, when if you're doing that, if you're trying to enroll or whatever, that might be an option to verify being part of a certain tribe. Got it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Gabe, your comment?
Oh, well, real quickly. My two chiefesses here, Tasha Xi and Phoenix Moon, a.k.a. Jackie Brown and Foxy Brown. I love those Indian code names. For the most part, anytime that you get a DNA test back that says you're 16% Irish, you're 18% Scandinavian, and you're 23%, West African, it's for entertainment purposes only because they can't define and break you down that way. And going even further, you have to understand that we have a lot of agents out here who look like us who foster this, like a.k.a. Mr. Skip Gates, who recently got a $10 million endowment for misinformation, for misinforming us and having us believe that through DNA testing that, we can find our ancestry, when in reality he knows better. By his own admission, he knows better. So we have to understand that they're going to use every trick in the book to keep us from being the powerful engines that we are. And once we reclaim that, there's nothing that they can really do to stop us at that point.
Okay. Well, we're close. I put in 2 hours for this. But I do want to talk about a little bit about what the webinar and the workshop is going to be about on, July 28th. To our audience that's listening, too, if anybody has any questions, we have 3 people that are in our call. You can raise your hand if you have any questions thus far for anyone. The chat room has been open on Blog Talk, so you can go into the chat room, too, and put anything in there if you're listening online or from ponderthisone.com. You can go into the chat room on Blog Talk Radio, just chime in. But I also, we have a webinar that's coming up where you guys are talking about the 2020 census and the importance of it for Negroes. Now, even before we get into a little bit about what the webinar will be and what you guys are presenting, definition of term. Now, you're saying 2020 for Negroes. Even in the description, you're saying that Black has no standing, African American has no standing. So if we are on our paperwork stating that we are Black or African American, does that mean that we are pretty much putting ourselves in a place of where we have no hold or no stake in America? Even if we don't have a stake in America, quote unquote, do our votes count? Do we really have a say? So, kind of talk about the definition of stating that we are Negro, or if we're kind of how should we define? I guess the question would be, how should we be defining ourselves, and why doesn't Black work, and why doesn't African American work?
In the Supreme Court decision for Judge Scott, it was very clear when Justice Taney read his decision, sent, and he indicated that a black man has no rights that a white man is bound to.
Right. Well, isn't it that was you said the Dred Scott decision, right?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, when I was talking to somebody about that, and I think I read somewhere too that if Dred Scott had said when they asked him to define himself, if he had said he was a human, I think he defined himself as a black man. I'd have to go back and read it for myself and then find.
I think in the transcripts, what it appears to me is, they do things, and it was the way that he answered. I don't believe that he thought that himself as a African man, But if they say, "Are you a black man? Are you a black man, Mr. Scott?" Under those kind of conditions, and he said, "Well, shit, are you sitting there around all these other, different colored people?" I'm not sure if I remember exactly, but it looks like they kind of placed that on his tongue. And being that he spoke that out of his mouth, it automatically guaranteed that they can do whatever they want to him.
Right.
Very interesting. Dred Scott is on Minnesota censuses in the 1830s and 1840s. I also found him living next door to the woman that he married in a household with another woman and a newborn child named Valentine in 1850 Halifax, Virginia. So when he was in Minnesota, he was actually at Fort Snelling and Rock Island, which is in Illinois, Chicago. These are Indian territories, and he was at Indian Fort. I don't think a lot of people know that. But as far as black not having any legal standing, it tells you that it basically makes you a foreigner to the land, and you don't have any attachment. It also means dismal and calamitous. So in those instances, that's not how you want to be classified. It pretty much says that this is a person that needs to be supervised. It's a certain level of competency that they don't have, and they need us to maintain that. This is the mind of our European people that think that, they're constantly wanting to be in control, and for people that call themselves black or are in a black condition need to be controlled by these Europeans. So it's about freedom, and a freedman. It has self-determination is absolutely included in anybody's walk for freedom. I don't care what color you are. You have to self-determine who you are in order to start there, in order for anybody to take you seriously in regards to being a free person. And with the adjectives and descriptions of black, I don't think people void of light, wicked, sullen. I don't think I know anybody like that, and no one's the color of a car tire or asphalt.
I get it. I get it. I like that description there. Thank you for that. The aspect of because you were talking about it, a freeman. Which is also a terminology that's used in a certain way here in America. They actually have communities of freemen or townships of freemen. What really defines a person to be a freeman or a free man or free?
Well, particularly it is one that definitely knows how to self-determine. Let me see, I can probably give a legal definition that's going to be the one that would determine, that's the one that people need to reckon with. The legal dictionary is different than a medical dictionary and different than a Webster. And a free man is one who is in the enjoyment of the right to do whatever he pleases, not forbidden by law. One in possession of the civil rights enjoyed by the people generally. And who are the ones that have issues with civil rights? 100 years later?
Right. Ask that question again, because I think I interrupted you about the civil rights.
Well, the people that, weren't able to enjoy the civil rights has always been the American Indians. When you read publicly 284 of April 11th, 1968. In the first instance, they talk about the federally protected activities. In the second statement, they talk about riots. In the second title, they speak on the rights of Indians. I don't think anybody, black, Negro, or so-called African-American, or anybody that calls themselves that has ever really stopped and looked at the law. We've always heard about the movement, but we never saw what law was enacted. And it doesn't say anything about black, African-American, Negro, nothing. It says Indian, rights of Indians. And that does not mean Native Americans. There's no treaty that says anything about Native Americans. And I'm having a hard time finding any pictures, any information with any proof that the Native Americans came off of reservations and they were rioting in Detroit, rioting, taking TVs and looting in Watts because of the police violence, and that they killed Martin Luther King. I don't recall them in Baltimore throwing cocktails through any windows. So, pretty obvious who they are speaking about.
Interesting. Yep. And it's very interesting, too, that you're saying, in terms of what the definition of a free man is, it sounds like there are people, too, that are just living under the universal law.
That is correct. That is
Exactly.
correct. Everyone should. And also, freedom and liberty are not the same thing.
Right. And define liberty for the people that are questioning. I'm hearing my audience saying, and liberty is? So what is liberty? Because we talk about that, or we learn a little bit about it in school. So you're saying that it's different. So what is liberty?
Liberty is divided into different factions, okay? You have civil, natural, political, and personal. Those are liberties that you can enjoy. And usually those are the ones that we are always in pursuit of, like the dog chase on a treadmill chasing a hot dog on a stick. And the reason being, particularly is because we have been labeling ourselves, under the terms that we were given, not the terms that we were told by our ancestors and our parents, or, by the actual oppressor that is looking to disconnect us so that his children can enjoy the benefits that have been taken from our ancestors.
Yeah. So, and even going further with that, Corey, liberty didn't really apply to us back then. It applied to Europeans that came here. You have to remember that most of the Europeans that were shipped here as slaves had no liberty where they were from their lands. So when they came here, the whole life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, it was actually original life, liberty, and the pursuit of land. Because, again, they were peasants. A lot of them were in prison. A lot of them had no right to perpetuity where they came from. So when they came here, they sought liberty more than anything.
Right. Interesting. And so in terms of the people of color, the melanated community, because I just can't say black anymore, the melanated community that is lost in the knowledge and knowing, do you feel that most of they don't even really know what they're struggling? And yeah, that's the question. They really don't know what the struggle is, because they are seeking black power, which really doesn't exist. They can get the black power all they want, but they still don't have rights as a freeman if they're not identifying themselves as indigenous beings of this land. And so it now looks very don't want to use that word. It looks very funny on the edges about the marches, about the things that have been done in the past, and I'm talking Malcolm, I'm talking Martin, in terms of what we were struggling to be or become in America as melanated people, and what we're fighting or who we're fighting, in terms of this struggle. And now it almost seems like in what you all are saying, the struggle really is the knowing of self, right, and really getting to know who we are. Would actually it would begin a different type of fight for our own freedom. We've been misguided, and as Gabriel, I think we've talked about it before, but I'm even more clear now just listening to all of you, that when we are out and about, because of let me just put it this way, because of the miseducation of who we are even being misguided in the results of what we're struggling for. Do you agree?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you see the results now. The time is told. The Black Power movement started some 52 years ago, and you see the results of what has happened and what's transpired since that time. I did a show not too long ago, I think in January, when the Black Panther movie came out, entitled The Black Panther and the Creation of the African American. And what they were trying to do at that time, because you have to also remember, a lot of the history is revisionist. They were not calling us blacks, in the 1700s. We were Negroes, but they would call us that, or that would be the thing that they would call us, copper Negroes or copper Indians or things of this nature. But the N word and all these words, they didn't transpire till well after the late 19th century, when those names came, were applied to us. However, in the 50s, the whole black thing came to the forefront, the connecting of Africa, and it started at universities, one particular university. I can't think of the name of it right now. It's early, and I haven't had a beer. But no, I'm just joking with the beer coffee.
Your morning glass, your morning mug. I know.
That's my cup of Joe. But no, the way that they pushed it. Just go back and watch A Raisin in the Sun. If you go back and watch A Raisin in the Sun, Elaine Hansberry, that movie came out, I believe, about 1961. And in it, Ruby Dee, she's a college student and she's African dancing and she's wanted to change her name and then blah, blah, blah. And blacks, the term blacks was applied to Africans, not to us. And so really what they did was, looking back, they wanted to change our mentalities where, now we're looking to another country as our homeland while not placing any value in the land that we live in. It's a mentality. It's a mentality with the African American as well. The African American is a beggar. The African American is a whiner. The African American is a complainer, and he's always looking for his parent or guardian, because to be a minority is to be a minor, and a minor needs a parent or a guardian to take care of it. And so when these things go down, you see the shootings and all this, they march, they complain, they whine, and then they disperse. And each time that we take on these titles that are given to us, it changes our mentality. And so remember, as Indians, they wouldn't dare approach us. We were the greatest fighters in the world. You don't sign, over 550 to 650 treaties with somebody whose ass you're kicking. You sign treaties because more than likely they're kicking your ass. And remember that, they defeated Africa before the gun was even invented. So here they couldn't beat us with the musket, with the flintlock, with the flintlock gun. They couldn't, and we practically invented the rifle. So they couldn't even beat us with warfare of that nature. We didn't start taking losses from them, serious losses in war from them until the late 19th century.
Got it. So, I'm also hearing that it's not really Black History Month. It's Indigenous American Month.
Bingo.
Well, you got to realize who created that Negro History Week, and that was W.E.B. Du Bois, and his affiliation with Prince Hall Masons and these other entities which were trying to take control of our community. Right. And the purpose of that was to put in place this African identity, which he himself later in his life denied it, and he was against the Back to Africa movement, and he was against Marcus Garvey and what they were doing with the whole mission to send people to Liberia, because he was on board with that at first, and then he backed away when he realized what was happening over there to those people.
Right. Interesting.
And also they talk about
this about 13,000 people in the entire 148 years that the American Colonization Society was open, even though they had been sending people long before Paul Coffey. I've seen some documents and transcripts from the 1780s, 1790s, where they were sending people after the post-Revolutionary War. They were sending folks over there to colonize. But Marcus Garvey, they were looking for him to revitalize the place because, you know, the donations and the currency at that point, you had Black Wall Street. If you don't hurry up and get them out of here, we're going to be reduced to going back to Europe. So they needed to create a Marcus Garvey to take everybody's mind off of the land.
Right.
And you have to understand.
Was successful.
They
said we had almost 5 million people ready to go. Well, you know, I used to have a big grudge against J. Edgar Hoover growing up, learning about him in history. But I'd like to thank that man for putting the sugar in the tank for that Black Star Line of ship. I apologize for that man.
Not to mention, you have to understand the thing about Garvey is Garvey had ties to Walter Plecker, clearly a white supremacist.
That's right.
Garvey also was backed by what would be considered the MI6, British Secret Intelligence Service. So when J. Edgar Hoover, that's the reason he was sent back to London. He wasn't sent to Jamaica because what Hoover found out was that, you know, he was fronted by the British Secret British intelligence. So he was here to misguide us, misdirect us, pretty much the same as Du Bois. You know, you have a lot of these so-called black bourgeois who, let's just say willingly would misguide us for their own fame, for their own success, and that happens even today.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing's really changed in that regard.
Right. Yeah,
so would do you willingness? It always makes me wonder. Well, two ways that I see it is if it was a willingness on their behalf to do what they did, to just do what they did, in order to eat and to gain some type of status. Okay, but not okay. Or was it that, you know, they were confronted? Because this, a little bit of a testimony. I think when you've got something good going on and you know that you can be influential to the people, I think that you are approached, you know, and to be financially, because we all tend to think that people run after the money, and because they've put us in a place where we feel, or not we as me, but, you know, some people feel that, you know, oh, if I have the money, then I can do. Well, you're very smart, you're intelligent, you've got a movement, you've got something that's going to make waves, so we're going to approach you and, you know, offer you some money so that you can actually take your movement to the next level, not knowing that behind that contract, behind that agreement, behind that meeting are a group of people that will also persuade you to also place their intent in your intentions. And so it always makes me wonder, you know, when they give, or they not even give, when they make these offers, in a sense, you know, everyone that is has some type of influence on the black community, I always wonder how were they approached to go from 0 to 1,000 quickly, without having the finances themselves. And so, you know, really what is the truth and how much of it is truth in terms of what they're actually feeding, or are they too a part of the system to break us apart and being used as puppets in a sense so that we can be diverted. No different than what's going on in Washington right now, nothing but smoke and mirrors. And once the smoke dies down, we'll actually see what will be reflected back on us, in terms of the demise and the destruction. So it just always makes me wonder, about that.
Well, it's called control opposition. Now, people like Du Bois and people like Garvey, they're all a part of, like I said, Freemasonry. That doesn't mean all people in Freemasonry are a part of this, but they're, like you said, those people are easily approached because they already know that they have a certain connection and they have a certain, dedication to secrecy and what they're doing. Now, people like Du Bois and even Martin Luther King, they, like you said, they were getting certain funding. Martin Luther King was funded by the Rockefellers.
Right.
He would have to do certain things, within their certain narrative that they gave him. But later in years, him and Du Bois kind of broke away from that, and started speaking out about certain things. Like Du Bois was speaking out about Garvey. Martin Luther King was speaking out about getting reparations and things like that. And he realized that civil rights was not the right way to go. It should have been human rights. So both him and Malcolm X were going to present, something for human rights for us to the UN. And that's why they were taken out.
Right. Yeah. Stop that breath before it goes further. For sure.
You have to realize that you have to give those two men respect because they literally walked off the reservation and didn't come back. Martin Luther King, they had their hands on Martin Luther King's father. Actually, one of the things that you're talking about of being approached in the whole nine. A lot of the times, as Tasha was saying, in Phoenix, you're groomed for it. You're groomed even if you don't even know you're being groomed. So with take Martin Luther King, actually his original name is Michael King, not Martin Luther King. His father took that name on when they went to Germany. You're talking about a man who's during the height of the Depression is going overseas. He's well off while everybody else is struggling. So he's taking trips to Europe and the whole nine. So they had their hands on the father and then got their hands on the son. And of course, the first start of that obviously is church. That's indoctrination. The second part is college indoctrination. Martin Luther King was an alpha, so fraternal order indoctrination.
Right.
So he was deep into indoctrination, before he even became Boule. So the fact of around about 1966 to his death in 68, he made a concerted effort to walk off that Boule reservation, knowing what the price was. Because you can't just walk away. Just ask Ron Brown, who was also Boule, and started talking things that he shouldn't have said. And next thing you know, his plane crashes, and they say he died in a plane crash, and you find he had a bullet hole in his head. So you have to give those men props for walking off that reservation and trying to tell people what the real deal is. And also, another thing, just real quickly, a lot of our elders spoke in code back then. Even Martin Luther King, even in his I Have a Dream speech, he says 100 years later, the Negro is still not free in his own land. James Baldwin said, you read stories about the cowboys and Indians, and then you come to find that the Indians are us. These people spoke in code because it wasn't always, let's just say it could be hazardous to your health to just come out and say 1921 and say, yeah, I'm an Indian, and depending upon what part of the country that you lived in.
Right. Wow. Yeah, that makes sense. So give us a little synopsis. I'm going to start closing out. Give us a little synopsis on what we will be hearing and seeing on the 28th from each of you. What are you presenting on that day?
Well, I follow my chiefesses here, so I'm going to let them expound.
Okay.
Well, certainly a little brief history on the census and why it was so important then, and how right now this 2020 census is absolutely going to be the clarity maker of all time. This is probably going to be, this is going to be the most important census in our lifetime. and then it won't be available. Oh my goodness, for I don't even know, another 76 years before it'll be available.
Yeah, exactly.
So every 76 years they release a census. But this is going to be where we get our status and title back, and it leaves our progenitors room for political power. It leaves them room to be able to self-govern, self-identify, and also to hold on to to whatever it is that they obtain, whether it's land or businesses, and lift up some of this veil of oppression that seems to be smothering our people. A lot of it, there's always a remedy. You don't have to scream no justice, no peace. There's absolutely going to be a war that, comes before there is peace, and there's a remedy to receive the justice that people are looking for, but it's going to be based off of you self-determining who you are. So the census is definitely going to be super important. Line so people are able to list different ethnicities, different tribal affiliations, whether they're recognized or not. If you know your is Blackfoot, then you might want to identify yourself as such.
Gotcha. Tasha, what are you bringing on the 28th?
Well, I'm just basically, like Phoenix said, we're going to break down the definition of what the census is, the relation to our people in the census, and how our identity has been changed by the census, and how we now have the power to take back our identity and our nationality. The importance in that being that, we need to right now take control for our future. So when our descendants look back, they will know who they are, and they won't have to struggle as some of us had to reclaim our identity. That also brings power, that brings funding to certain organizations, and it brings that legal standings for us. That we, because we all mentioned earlier, Phoenix mentioned, Gabe mentioned, Black has no standing in law. So once you take out that Black and you put in American Indian or Indigenous or whatever you want to put on the census, it shows that we're still here. We never left. And we have some type of identity that's still attached to this land.
Okay. Cool. Gabriel?
Well, I'm bringing these two lovely ladies, and I'm just going to sit there and go, yeah, right on. No.
You're funny.
So, what I'm bringing is, these two lovely ladies. That part is very true, but for the most part, we need to understand that by defining ourselves, redefining ourselves, going back to ourselves, we'll find out just how many of us there are in America. You'll find out there's far, far more than just the reported 40 to 48 million of us, that we number well over 100 million. Also, we have to understand that by defining ourselves, it puts us back into a frame of mind of defense of ourselves and our land, because a war it never stops. The war is ongoing. What you see out here in these streets right now with the cops taking us down, that's war. That's all it is. It's just war. All right. So being who you are, being an American Indian, an Ame'Rican Indian, gives you the right to defend yourself now, where you don't feel that you are this poor minority who can't fight back. It gives you the mindset to fight for what's yours, your family, your loved ones, your people. And that is so important as these young kids come up today, who are really more focused on fighting each other because that's the game, right? But give them something to fight for, and you'll see a different result, because this won't stop until we stop it. And the census is important because it gives us that definition. And again, as Phoenix said, this won't happen for another 76 years, and I don't think any of us are going to make it to see it. Okay, I don't think I'm going to be 120-something years old, for the next census. So we need to really, really go out and redefine ourselves, take over as the political aspect of it, the social aspect of it, the spiritual aspect of it all. and come back to being what we really truly are. So if you have a tribe, you know a tribe, claim your tribe.
Nice. Okay. Well, I'm totally looking forward to it. Just this radio show gave me, I got some notes. I'm going to be looking up some stuff afterwards. So I'm truly looking forward to being able to produce this webinar for you all and putting this information out. I'm totally excited and looking forward to it. It is something that our people need to know, that our children definitely need to educate themselves on, because this actually builds the legacy that we're looking for. How can you build a legacy from zero? So we definitely need the one so that we keep adding to it, and so that we can build our communities up. And so, it definitely, I'm in agreement that it is needed. So I want to thank you all again for being on, Ponder This, What is Love. And to tell you the truth, folks, if if this did not point you in the right direction to loving who you are and knowing who you are, then you're going to have to definitely show up on the 28th to get the full vibration, because just so that you can soak it again, you know what I'm saying? So again, I want to thank you, Phoenix Moon, for being on, Gabriel Rich for being on. Tasha, how are you saying the XI?
She
or Chi?
Mm-hmm. She, yeah. She like her.
Okay,
like
okay.
He.
Tasha Xi.
Yeah,
okay,
she.
I will pronounce it correctly from now on, now that
Thank
I know.
you.
Or just say Jackie Brown or Foxy Brown, and they'll.
I thought that was her code name. I'm not going to put their code name out. People are going to be looking for the wrong.
You know how I am.
I like
with
coffee.
the Indian code.
I like coffee. Didn't coffee?
You like coffee? Oh, okay. We're gonna call coffee. Then we
kicking in doors.
and remember, Corey, your Indian code name is seldom seen.
That's right, seldom seen. I love it. Incognito, folks. Let people know let my audience know where they can find each one of you online if they're looking to find more information and get in contact with your video or your blog talk.
I'm Phoenix Moon on YouTube. I actually have 2 pages, one for the lovers and one for the haters, because it's depending on which cloud is flagging the content that I put out. So that would then become the hater channel, and then I move over to the other. So they're both titled Phoenix Moon. Certainly subscribe. I always put the links and information in. Have a couple of other guests that people are very familiar with also that join me often. And also I'm on a few other platforms that's spreading out this good word.
Cool. Tasha?
I also have a YouTube channel. It's my name, Tasha Xi. So, regular Tasha with XI. So I'm going to be bringing more content on there. I don't think I have any haters on there yet, but once I put more information on. So I'm going to be going to some more locations and actually expose a lot of the hidden history within our people, how we were reclassified, how a lot of our people was enslaved, but they don't talk about the indigenous slave trade and other information like that. So you can catch me on there.
Good. And Gabriel, how can people find you?
Tasha is like the school teacher that I had a crush on after I stopped watching Sesame Street. Yeah, Phoenix is like the aunt that would give me pork chops on the side because I was still hungry after a meal. That's how it goes with those 2 sisters. But you can find me also on YouTube under my name, Gabriel Rich. I actually just uploaded a few shows that I've done, and I'll upload some more. Also, you can find me on Blog Talk Radio, The Rich Report.
Exactly. All those were great. Again, I want to thank you all 3. Well, I keep saying both. I did that as a commercial when I was trying to create. It's like both. It's 3 people. I want to thank you all for being a part of the show and accepting the invitation to be on and to inform my audience. And like I said, I look forward to working with you guys all on the 28th. So until then, be safe. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot, Corey.